So I'm here at the Proton headquarters with Andrei Daescu, with Meghan Dizon, with Travis Rettenmaier. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Hey, happy to be here.
Good to see you again, man.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you as well.
Yeah. So we're sitting in Charles's office.
Yep.
Owner of Proton. He was kind enough to let me borrow his office for a studio.
The headquarters.
The headquarters. And the event, I think, was mostly to launch the Series 4 paddle, which, I'm not sure he's getting enough in stock for us all to play with them, but he's got a couple. And that's going to be their newest paddle. You're playing with the Series 1. You're still playing with it.
Still playing with the Series 1,
Yeah.
That's the one we came up with initially. We did a lot of work. There was a lot of back and forth between Charles and I in terms of the changes we wanted to make to the paddle and what I wanted added onto and that kind of stuff. And I still think it's a great paddle, and it's won some good medals for me and some other players actually on the tour, and some amateur players as well. So I think it's a great paddle. I know they've been selling a bunch of those. They're still a little out of stock right now, but they're trying to keep up with it, and hopefully everybody's gonna get their hands on it.
Yeah. So my whole thing, as you remember last time, I'm big into paddle technology.
Yep.
Kind of the metrics on paddles. I do a lot of paddle reviews and testing of paddles. So it's gonna be kind of a gearhead style interview. So I'll ask you mostly about that. If you want to talk about anything else, I'm happy to leave it open ended. But
okay.
But I think you're pretty into the technology too, if I remember correctly. But how important?
Not a lot, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, not a whole lot. I mean, I can tell you exactly what paddle is good, what's not, what feels good, what not. What you need from a paddle. But actually, what they do inside and all that kind of stuff. My engineering background is very limited. So
okay. Well, to that end, how important is the paddle technology for you and paddle selection? Is it hugely important, or can you kind of take any paddle out there and
no? Obviously,
play well
in today's game, you need a good paddle, and technology is obviously super important. Mm-hmm. Fortunately for me, I got Charles, who I can go back and forth with, and he can make some adjustments to the paddle really quick. Mm-hmm. That was the fun thing and the most important thing, when we started working together, was how quick he was able to convert the feedback I was giving him, and how quickly we were able to kind of come up with a paddle that I liked. Yeah. Exactly what he does to the paddles and what goes into the paddles, I pretty much have no clue. I'm the player, not the one who makes it. But I could tell you, it's got a lot of good pop, which I need obviously in the pro game, and I think it's got a lot of great feel around the kitchen and for the soft game in general, drops, resets, and that kind of stuff. Good. Spin is very good as well. I feel like I can flick and get enough on it. So definitely, like I said, I've been playing with this paddle for a while now, and going to continue to do so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you play with the Series 1, so you brought your paddle.
Yes.
Is that still the same paddle you were playing with earlier in the game?
Yeah, I think I've been sharing, so I have about 4 paddles, and I never really know which one I'm using. They all, to me, play the same and have all lasted and been working for me. So yeah, I haven't had to throw out any paddles yet. So just interchange between the same 4 paddles I've had.
It's pretty amazing, just 4 paddles. And when I talked to you last time, you had just 1 or 2. So
yes.
They do last a long time. So the Protons, particularly the Series 1 with the nanotech, they take a minute to break in. How long do you kind of experience the break-in period?
I've heard some of the players say that. For me, I don't feel like I need a break-in period or notice a difference. Maybe I need to start paying more attention to it, but for me, it feels great right off the bat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you're just used to it by now. Because when I played with the Series 1 in particular, it felt a little odd. Everything's kind of non-standard. The dimensions are a little different than other paddles. Mm-hmm. Definitely the materials are. So the experience for me was a little off. But after a couple of weeks, I really got used to it, and it started opening up.
Yeah, when it came to switching from the original, my other paddle that I was using to this one, it did take me about a week. I'd probably say it took me 8 days to really feel normal, and because it is a different material, mm-hmm. and it comes off the paddle differently. I now love it, but it was just odd at first.
Yeah. So I guess I'll ask first, how important is kind of your equipment to you? Are you kind of a gearhead where you're really into your paddle technology, or do you just kind of play with whatever you got?
No, I'm definitely a gearhead. And I'm very interested in not just the initial performance of the paddle, but the ultimate long-term performance of the paddle for a variety of reasons. One, as kind of Charles will highlight, the idea that I constantly have to switch paddles week after week, and they're slightly varied, as the manufacturing process is always slightly varied, whether that's weight or the way the grit is or the way they come off the paddle, is a huge pain. And then I think more from just like being the guy that I am that plays at a park, 5 nights a week, and watching guys buy paddles because I recommend them, and then those paddles last no time at all. Right. I feel like I'm a con man to some extent.
Yeah, so I think everybody can see that the pro game has come a long way. Let's look back 2 years ago, how the pros played then versus now. I think there's a lot of development and the overall skill of the game. How much of that would you attribute to the individual players just getting better? And how much would you attribute to the technology of the paddle in particular?
It's a great question. I'd probably say it's a 50-50. Because when I came out probably in June 2022 is when I started playing a lot more. I didn't really notice an enormous difference paddle to paddle. It just felt like all the carbon fiber faces were the same. No matter what company you went with, they were pretty comparable. And so I never felt like I was at a competitive advantage or disadvantage. And I've gone back to look even at some of my matches from that time frame, and it's definitely much slower. Relatively to now, much, much slower. I think there was one particular aspect of the game that was funny because in tennis, I had a one-handed backhand that was really bad. And I was like, I'm going to play pickleball. The fact that I didn't have a good backhand, a two-handed backhand in particular, won't harm me. And then almost in no time at all, 6 months from that time frame, guys were adding a two-hander left and right.
Right.
So that for me is the particular shot, the little two-handed backhand roll off the bounce, not just the attack, but the roll cross court, obviously, a la James Ignatovich, who's probably the best at it. That shot changed the dynamic of the game because every ball is potentially offense.
Sure. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the spin that the paddles generate now is so much better. And
absolutely. They're capable of doing it. And
right.
from very adverse positions well below the net, they're hitting shots that were not possible maybe
right.
2 years ago.
So I've seen kind of we've all seen it. So pickleball has come a long way in terms of the skills of the pro level play in the past couple of years. How much of that do you attribute to players just getting better versus how much do you attribute to the technology, the paddle technology, making people's game different?
Yeah, I feel like it's both. I feel like a lot of people are now taking this sport very seriously and putting in the time to train and really just take it as their full-time job. So I do think players are getting better in general, but I will say, the technology where you're able to create effortless power and then, doubled with control, like having both of those. And then the technology where you can create so much spin. I do feel like in the past, you maybe had to be more creative and whatnot, but now it's like people say coming from tennis can transition so much easier because you can take these huge strokes and the ball's still going to dip in, whereas before that was not the case. There's just sliding off the paddle.
How much of that do you attribute to just players getting better versus how much of that is related to paddle technology, paddles getting better?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the power has changed a lot. I mean, paddles are extremely powerful these days. It was a good thing, I think, 3-4 years ago, even 2 years ago, I think it was a good thing, but it gets to a point where it becomes too much when you're only 14 feet away from each other at the kitchen line. And the paddle is powerful enough where you can hit the person in front of you. It kind of takes away the skill. So I don't think we should go back to what it used to be, 7-8 years ago when it was just dinking either. I think there's got to be a happy medium somewhere in there where there's a lot of skill and power plays a role. But I think paddle technology has advanced for sure, and everybody wants more and more and more power, and they got a lot of control there. But I think they're taking the necessary steps to kind of bring it back a little bit under control. And if you ask me personally, I think spin should be allowed. I think that's where you see most of the skill. I just think with enough with enough power, about any average full can hit somebody in front of them 14 feet away. It's not a lot of skill in that. So I think a lot of spin is good. I think to be able to see different angles, to see the ball being moved around, I think it's going to force a lot more athleticism as well. It's going to get guys moving a lot more at the kitchen line. And then hand battles at last. I think it's what people want to see. So like some good 5 to 10 shot hand battles, or some big blows going back and forth. It's a lot of fun for people to watch and for us players to do as well. So I think that's where it should be.
Did you read my interview notes? Because you just anticipated two of the questions I was going to ask you.
No,
next.
I did not. No. But I guess great minds think alike. So, yeah.
So one was, what do you think of the current state of kind of the arms race in paddles and everybody trying to get more and more power in paddles, and where would you cap it if you had to choose from kind of the current paddles on the market? And second was, if power was regulated, and let's say they dropped it below the most powerful, like somewhere around that top tier paddles, but just below the most powerful paddles currently on the market, could we increase spin levels at that point to make the game more dynamic? Because power combined with a ton of spin makes kind of some things impossible. It changes the game maybe too much, according to what you're saying, and I think a lot of people agree with that. But drop the power, add more spin. That's going to create cooler shots and make a more dynamic looking game and more fun to play.
I think so, and more skill as well.
Yeah, more skill. Right.
100%. Yeah. That's kind of what I would say. I think it's important to find that, again, that the right balance between power and spin. I think in terms of spin, you can definitely have a wider range because it doesn't affect safety. So no matter how much spin you can put on the ball, you're not really going to be hurting anybody. Obviously, with power, it's different. You see more and more people wearing the protective eyewear and other things as well. More and more people are getting hit in spots where usually you wouldn't get hit before. So we definitely got to keep an eye on that from a safety standpoint. And you never know. I mean, if you look at other sports, things have adapted over the years. Again, if you're just asking me personally, I think obviously the ball can evolve still a lot. We've been talking about paddles for the last 5 years and how paddles have gotten better and better and better, but the ball is kind of the same. So yeah, I don't have the engineering background to know what needs to be done to the ball, but if you look at someone like soccer, for example, where that if you compare the ball they used to play with, 30, 40 years ago, and the ball they play with today, you'll see a lot of differences. You can get a lot more spin on that ball. You can get a lot of different shapes in the way you shoot it and you pass it and all that. And I think that's kind of where you see the skill. So yeah, I think that's a good opportunity for our game of pickleball as well. That's
a really good point about the ball. Like the technology and the science behind balls is so far behind paddles.
Yeah. And it's interesting that nobody's really. I mean, I'm sure people have looked into it, but maybe it's the fact that it's a wiffle ball, and who knows, that could change as well. Again, sports have always evolved, and
right.
Yeah.
I mean, just the basic, it staying round, which is hugely important, is not really a thing, with any ball yet. And consistent bounces is kind of key to.
Yeah, consistent bounce is definitely key.
Yeah.
We were talking about it earlier, actually, downstairs, with some of the players, and with more and more RPM being on the ball these days, you can adapt to a lot of things. Obviously, players have adapted to a different speed. We had to. People have adapted to a lot more spin on the ball. We had to, but I don't think anybody can adapt to bad bounce. So, if the ball cannot take that amount of RPM on it, then obviously something has to be done with the ball, because you don't want to dial the paddles back in and take away that skill,
Sure.
I think a game where we ding for like 20, 30 times cross court is not fun to play or watch either.
Right.
So.
If we cap speed and power and regulate it, then why not allow spin to go up higher? Like we were hitting top spin serves today and measuring them. 2,300 was about the most anybody got. Why not loosen those regulations a bit and bring it up to 2,600, 3,000 even? Do you see any disadvantages of doing that?
I don't.
If the power isn't there, if the power is capped.
Yeah, I don't think there's a disadvantage to it. But again, it's something that you'd have to play it to test it, where I would, give you some reasonable data back that, like, okay, I've done this now in 40 games, and here's the pros and here's the cons.
Right.
Just speaking off the top of my head, I don't see a disadvantage. I think the guys, again, who have really quality technique and good fundamentals would be better off. But I can't say that for sure. I can't say if there's something about the game that would be, there'd be a detriment to it or something that would improve immensely. I just don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it would be a more dynamic game for viewership for sure. Seeing people, really dip the ball and shape the ball in different ways.
Yeah.
But there are unknowns. Yeah, it'd be nice to experiment with it.
There's actually a rule that I would like to employ that I think would be interesting, and this is actually a Zane one, where you say that shaping the ball would absolutely add more to the game. But I go a step further. I actually think you should take the posts out 6 inches on both sides. Makes the game more athletic, more dynamic. Having guys stand still on the right side is not good for viewership. It never will be.
That's true.
Doesn't showcase athleticism. So if I had a great angle right now, I'm penalized for it. Can't stand that.
Right.
I think it's ridiculous. And being able to make guys shift and really showcase their athleticism, that would be really fun.
Right. So the idea being that the current width of the net allows pretty easy ATPs if you go wide with the cross-court dink.
And it creates really stagnant play, right? Because you eventually, at times, even with the highest level in the world, you have 4 guys ultimately, and of course, there's far more to it than it appears, but it looks to the average viewer, these guys are just standing still, hitting drop shots and dinks back to each other. If you move those bars out, it doesn't look that way. It looks like, oh shit, like these guys are shuffling and moving, and it would be really fascinating to not watch a right side guy in particular just stand there.
Right. Yeah, just on the corner of the kitchen.
Correct.
So let's say we limit the power of paddles. Everybody across the board can go up to this exit velocity limit. What do you think about spin?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thoughts at this moment in time would be, yeah, I'm fine with increasing the spin to whatever you want and dialing back the power. So yeah, softer paddles with that you can create more spin with, I think is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it would be a funner to watch too, a more dynamic game to see like ATPs really arc. If you're 3 feet inside the sideline and you can arc it around the post, that would make for some fun viewing. But yeah, that's something I've heard some people talk about. Have you played with any Kevlar surfaced paddles? They've been using Aramid and Kevlar in the core paddles for a while now, but the newer Kevlar surfaced paddles, have you played with any of those?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Is that what's on the new Series 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some Kevlar in it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that. I felt it the other day, but I haven't played with it yet.
Okay. Yeah, I think most people who've played with it think it's an alternative to carbon fiber. It doesn't play that much different, but it's a little plusher. There's some vibration differences.
Does it last longer too?
I don't think so. But apparently the new Series 4 has some kind of new tech in the surface that allows it to be more durable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's what Charles told me anyway.
Okay. We'll believe
We'll
Charles.
test it and see. Right. Have you played much with Kevlar surfaced paddles? So Kevlar and Aramid have been around for a long time in cores, but they're only recently in the past year they've been starting to use it on the surface. Have you played around with those
I've played with one, the Ruby 6.0, but I'm not familiar. I'm not that like keen or I'm able to tell you that I saw this advantage. It felt a little stiffer. There was another one, I think it was called the Pro line, maybe.
Yeah.
That was the other one I tried.
Apes.
Yeah, is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. And it felt very stiff to me, that particular one, and it was heavy. It was really heavy. But I didn't notice any advantage early on, but I'd have to do some far more time play testing to tell you that this is great or this is terrible.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting you feel that they were stiffer, and that's such a subjective thing. I find the Kevlar to be a little more plush than raw carbon fiber, but it's different for different people. It's one of those totally subjective things. But so yeah, back to the question. So if you're choosing from the paddles on the market right now, and let's pretend the Yolas aren't delisted and they're still on the market, is there a paddle that you would say, okay, let's cap the power and pop of paddles at this one? So be it any current paddle on the market.
To be honest with you, I haven't really played with a lot of other paddles, especially in the last year, so I wouldn't really have the answer for that. Just based on people that I've played against, I guess, I don't know. Look, I mean, even on the older generation paddles, they've made some adjustments to it for deflection and stuff. I don't know exactly what paddle I would pick, but there's a certain level of deflection, again, that has to be accomplished, I think, before we get there. So I don't know the exact answer.
Do you think in general that there are paddles out there that have too much power? Or do you think we should keep going down that road?
I mean, look, you could keep going down the road, but you're gonna end up in a place again where you lose the skill. And I think to a certain degree, tennis was there in the late 90s, early 2000s. If you watch a Wimbledon final and it was just a serve and a return, or maybe 2 or 3 aces a game, and it wasn't a whole lot of rallying. So you only had one skill, you had a good serve, and that got you to the later rounds of a Grand Slam, and tennis recognized that and changed it. And I think it's a lot more fun to watch Wimbledon these days than it was 20 years ago, So I think, again, pickleball could say, look, let's give it a free go and continue to improve technology, which is fine. I mean, we're athletes and we're going to adapt to that, but I think it's going to take away the skill, and at some point you're going to have to dial it back to make it fun again for people to watch and play it. So might as well just do it now, learn from some of the other sports, and there's all sorts of different ways you could do it, I spoke to Travis in his podcast, and we're discussing about maybe, moving the net post a little wider, which I think is a fantastic point he made there. Allowing for more spin, kind of like we discussed it. I think that's, again, that makes movement a lot harder. It requires people to move more. All sorts of different shots you can hit, all sorts of different spots you can get to. I think that combo it's going to make for some fun rallies. So yeah, different ways to go about it. Personally, again, just because you asked me, and I spoke to a lot of players on the tour as well. Yeah, I just don't think adding more power is gonna help at this point, because it takes away the skill.
Yeah, I asked Colin Johns the same thing, and he's been on record saying this quite a few times with different people. And he's saying that particularly with men's doubles, with the current power levels of paddles, people are deathly afraid of speeding up because the counter is going to be impossible to get back. So it's going to be a clean winner. So that's what you're seeing with more powerful paddles is slower gameplay, particularly at the
No, I think
play.
I would actually probably disagree with that. I think with a more powerful paddle now you have more success, speeding up on balls that you didn't have success, let's say, 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
And I also think obviously the counter is stronger, but that initial punch is stronger as well. So a lot of times it used to be that you're speeding up to certain areas where you're either chicken wing people, or you're trying to get people to to surprise them and get them in a spot where they're not expecting the ball. And quite frankly, I mean, and it's been discussed, and nobody's making a secret out of it. These days, you're kind of speeding up to hit the person in front of you. And
right.
Yeah, again, it went from trying to hit a certain area, let's say trying to hit the right shoulder, hitting shoulder of a player, or just, I don't know, a high back end or something where you didn't think they were sitting on, to just hitting somebody in the chest with the ball. So it's,
right.
Yeah. Is the counter more powerful? For sure, but so is the speed up. So, and so is the drive, and you see in some of the hand fights as well. It used to be it used to be some good heavy blows traded back and forth before you can put a ball away to people, and now it's getting a little too easy to do that. So
yeah.
I think a more powerful paddle makes it more fast. I don't think it makes it slower. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So more likely to get an advantage if you're the first one to speed up then.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Look, I think today's game proves it. And I don't know, I mean, obviously it plays a role in men's doubles, but I think men's doubles is probably the least affected by it. I think if you look at mixed doubles, for example, I think it's quite different because you have the female player obviously in front of you, and it could get dangerous pretty fast.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that take. Is there a paddle you would kind of you'd choose and say, okay, that's enough power, guys. Let's kind of dial this back, because I've talked to different people before, amateurs and pros, and I think there's a growing consensus that there are paddles on the market currently that are either at the limit we want to be or too powerful, and it's changing the nature of the game. Is that kind of your take too, or do you think we should increase the power? And what's the paddle in the market right now where you'd just be like, okay, that's enough?
Man, I mean, there's a lot of paddles that among different companies that get delaminated, and so I don't think I can I'm gonna narrow down just one when it comes to the delam, because then any paddle that's delaminated comes off super hot.
Right.
I guess it'd be safe to say I mean, there's been times where when I've played against the new gearbox or the Iolas, they are crazy, crazy powerful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't necessarily think that we should continue making paddles to be as powerful. I do think it should be, dialed back a bit. Cause a lot of people, I think even if we slow the paddles down, people are still going to be wearing eyewear. I just think it's smart in general to bring up that topic.
For sure.
But, because a lot of times I've been hit in the eye has actually been from my partner's paddle reflecting off.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think we should dial it back a bit for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's agreement out there that we should. And it's not something you can see as a spectator, even watching, on the side of the court. You don't really see the speed difference with the more power paddles, but you feel it on the court, and then the ball sneaks up on you so much faster, and you don't have the human reaction time only goes so high, right? You don't have time to react. And, yeah. All right. So I saw you downstairs earlier, kind of eating a healthy breakfast. So you're probably a healthy eater, but if you're at home alone, you're not trying to entertain people or impress anybody. What's your dinner of choice?
My dinner of choice, man, I feel like lately I keep just like ordering in Thai food. I get like either massaman curry or yellow curry and spring rolls. That's been like my go-to lately.
That's a good choice. What's your favorite cuisine? Is it Thai?
I feel like lately it's been Thai food. Yeah, but I love all food.
Gotcha.
It's kind of funny because I am vegan, but I love vegan sushi.
That's right, you're vegan. I forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vegan sushi's good. Yeah. Do you do much cooking?
Here and there. I feel like we travel so much, and then I get home and we're home for a few days, so I don't want to go like full on grocery shopping. And I wouldn't say I'm like the best cook. I feel like I cook well for myself. Not sure I would serve what I've made to others. I need a little more practice for that. But so I'll cook for myself here and there.
So when you're home by yourself and you're not trying to impress anybody or host a dinner group, what do you eat for dinner?
Generally Thai. I got like 2 restaurants that I order from, and I do not cook. So I order Thai food probably 3 nights a week, and then I'm going to say this. I've told this to Augie Good because I saw a post of his with some pho. The best pho place I've ever been to is this little shanty sandwich shop in St. Petersburg called Banh Mi Saiget, and it's insane. Banh Mi Saigon Baguette. That's what it is.
Oh, I love some
and
pho.
The pho is unbelievable. So those are the 2 staples. Generally Asian food, maybe one night Italian, but.
That's funny. I asked Meghan the same question, and she said Thai also.
Oh, really?
So
well, she's a vegetarian too, so that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So, looking at the paddles on the market, let's pretend that the Yola fiasco didn't happen. They were still on the market. They weren't delisted. So we have power paddles out there for sure. What are your thoughts on kind of should power be capped, and if so, are there paddles on the market right now where you think, okay, those are about as fast as we should hit a ball in pickleball if we don't want to change the nature of the game? Let's kind of cap it at that level.
Let me answer that in 2 parts. One, the Yola ban is a farce. It's a farce.
Right, I love it. Let's hear.
Well, they introduced 2 paddles that were apparently the ones that passed initially, and guys are using them now. All the Yola players are using 2 paddles that are called the Mod and the Alpha. They're the exact same technology. They're a propulsion cord. You can hear it from a mile away. And so when I first got the first notice that, hey, these Gen 3 paddles are banned, I was like, sweet. Don't have to deal with that anymore. Because when I have played against them, like especially, certain instance, I played Colin Johnson mixed in Los Angeles, and to see the enormous improvement in his drive and counters was like, man, you are literally buying skill at this point. That is what's capable of. It's changing the dynamic of the game far too much. And then I walked up to listen to practice. I was walking through the courts in Dallas after I'd gotten that notice, and I heard that standard hollow popping sound. It was like, the hell? I thought we were done with that. And sure enough, all the guys were playing a paddle that was just essentially painted a little differently, marked a little differently, but it's the same thing. So that's part 1 of that. It's a farce. Part 2 is absolutely, there should be a cap on both. I mean, I think we can increase the spin. I don't want to say exponentially, but you can increase the spin because spin requires talent, skill, technique. Power does not. So whatever that metric is, let's say it's the 002 Selkirk, which is, has kind of been laid out by some as the benchmark. That should be it. And going beyond that, especially if you have a max spin and a max power, like the Yola Gen 3, it changes every part of the game. I, in fact, played a singles match against a kid recently who was using a Gen 3. in my view, he didn't hit one pickle shot. Not one. It was just bomb serve, bomb drive. That's it. There was never any craft. There was never any subtlety. There was never any nuance. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't beautiful. And those are the kind of the things that attracted me. It was like almost a big game of mini tennis was how I originally described it. It's probably not correct, but that's how it felt. It was artistic. It was feel. It was eloquent, delicate, however you want to describe it. So that being taken away is scary for a variety of reasons. One, it gets rid of those elongated hand battles that we all want at a higher level. And two, which is more dear to my heart, is I think that the part that I love the most about the game is I've got some 60-year-old buddies that I play with that are 3-5s to 4-5s, and I can go out and crack a drive at them and not, in theory, hurt them,
Right.
or it's so fast that they can't react. I think it potentially takes that away and makes that kind of inclusiveness of us, we all get to play together, that can kind of go away. And then maybe, and I've commented on this, Barbara, and I'm just using Barbara as an example, but a woman who hasn't played much comes out and plays a 4-0 who's really powerful, but doesn't have control, and he hits an overhead and catches her in the eye.
Right.
So we lose her, right? We lose her as a recreational player. She tells her friends, she tells 5 more. Suddenly we've lost 15 people, and that only continues. And that process only continues. So the beauty of the game right now is it was not that athleticism overtakes the average player, but nuance did, right? Skill did. And so this like overwhelming power really does worry me.
Good answers. And yeah, back to the Yola issue. Apparently the 2 paddles that are still in circulation in the pro levels are those first 2 prototypes that were approved by USAP way back.
Correct.
I think it was early last year.
Right.
And yeah, it's a fiasco. But yeah, so you're thinking like Selkirk 02 levels is about where you want to cap.
I think that's the cap. I think that leaves enough space that, if I can hit a drive off of my back foot and pass somebody in singles, probably not ideal. So I never felt like I could do that with an 002. Maybe if it was 45 degrees, yeah, I could do it.
Right.
But in a standard, normal climate, not possible.
All right. Do you have any books you're reading right now that you recommend, or books that you've read in the past?
The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle, probably my favorite book of all time. That's a good one. And then, go ahead.
Is that one about being in the present?
Yeah, just about being in the present. Just kind of, not just focusing on the past, focusing on what you can control, being in the moment. Easier said than done, obviously. And then, there's another one called Learned Optimism. That's a good one. Don't remember the author, but my old coach when I was like 23 forced me to read it because I was so hard on myself. But no, those are probably the only 2 that I'd really harp on as like books that The Way of the Peaceful Warrior was a good one. But yeah, those kinds of books, always insightful. Something you can always take. Maybe even it's like one small anecdote that you can take from each. They can be beneficial.
Right. There's a lot of stoicism involved. I got into Stoic philosophy for a while, and it's just the core tenet of it is that you should focus on what you can control, and then let the rest go.
Right.
Not let it bother you.
Certainly.
Because what can you do?
What can you do? No reason to get pissed about it.
Exactly. I've seen your kind of Twitter accounts and Instagram, and you seem to be a deep thinker. And is there a book you're reading right now that you'd recommend?
Is there a book I'm reading right now that I'll recommend? No, but there's a couple of books that I read about sports in general. I read all the books that Phil Jackson wrote. I think his coaching philosophy, and I just think the way he approaches things, not just to sports, but kind of life as well, I think they're great. The Flow was another book that I read a while back that I thought it was super interesting. What else I would recommend? Zen and Martial Arts. I thought it was a very, very good book. Right now, kind of reading a few things, but nothing really that caught my attention. So still trying to find a good book now.
The Zen and Martial Arts is a good segue and dovetail into another question I had, and that is, how important do you think the mental game is in pickleball specifically, and is there something you do regularly to sharpen your mental skills?
I think the mental game is extremely important. At the highest levels, it's probably the difference maker. I think the margins are so small, at the top of the game, and obviously everybody's super talented and gifted, and everybody's extremely fit, and everybody's played enough matches. So to break through those small margins, a lot of times it is up to the mental part of the game, and the things you could do to improve on that, I think, in my opinion, a lot of it comes with playing and being put in that situation over and over and over again, and just kind of getting the experience and then learning to deal with those moments and knowing your identity as a player and knowing what you should be doing in those tough moments. And that answer obviously is different from player to player. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses. Things that I like to do, I think again, playing it's one of them for sharpening mental skills, and then off the court, probably reading. Started playing a little bit of chess, not too good at it, but I find it super interesting. I think it definitely keeps your mind sharp. And playing, just different games that will keep your mind quick. I think that's the key.
Yeah, that's interesting because you're more focused on being able to like reaction time and focus. I think a lot of people are into mindfulness meditation. I've been working on that, and
I'm yet to try that, but I think it'll be something that I should try.
But I've also recognized that sometimes it's not good to focus on something if it's not broken. You know?
No, for sure.
And Ben Johns actually mentioned that. I was interviewing him too, and he's read a couple of things. He read the Mental Game of Tennis and liked it, but he said, I don't really struggle with that in my game, so I don't want to draw attention to it. So I think that's a valid point also.
For sure.
Seems like you're in the same spot.
You don't end up in paralysis by analysis
exactly.
Mode there. So
yeah. I mean, if it's working for you.
Quick thinking has got to be key,
Yeah.
And just being able to kind of brush things off and move through them, for sure.
So how much thinking are you actually doing on the court when you're out there, or is it just all kind of you're in the zone and you're just letting your body take
when you're on the court, I think it's mostly reflex. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what you practice for, and that's what you've played all these matches before.
Right.
I think your brain is programmed and trained to kind of take over at those times. But I think there's a lot of thinking you do in timeouts, during timeouts.
Right.
I think there's a lot of thinking you do before matches as well. You watch a lot of tape, you try to come up with a plan. So I think there's quite a bit of thinking that needs to be done, but definitely not as you're playing. You're not going to have that much time to think.
Exactly.
Turn your shoulder here. It's mostly just, letting your body kind of take over and
trust your training.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you feel about, like, how important is the mental game? How much of a difference do you think it makes in pickleball? And do you do anything to help with your mental game?
I do not. I probably should. But I think it's an enormous component. I think the interesting thing about, not that they're enormously different in tennis and pickleball, but Ben always says just play each point individually. Mm-hmm. And over time, if you're winning more points than you're losing, and that's a great philosophy. I think what's interesting about pickleball is in tennis, somebody can drop a 130 serve. You miss the return. It's really, really hard to get that back, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard. Tennis is hard, really, really hard relatively. In pickleball, the errors, 95% of the balls you hit are very, very easy. They're not hard shots. We're talking about a little dink cross court. It's not hard. So it's like the errors are magnified. Mm-hmm. If you make a mistake and you're playing doubles in particular, it's like he messed up.
Yeah.
She messed up. It's very clear. So it's really, really more important to kind of be patient with yourself. And it's something that I notice as I watch myself. I will have an overt reaction. It's not necessarily negative, but it's more in awe of what I just did, positively and negatively.
Right.
So those errors are being so much more pronounced. I'm less tolerant of them. So I'm working on just being more patient with myself and understanding the process a bit more.
Yeah, right on. Do you do any kind of meditation or anything, or?
I do a shit ton of yoga. That's my thing.
Okay.
I like that one.
Right.
I'm not a very good guy still. I do not like being still. Dion actually gets upset at me, my girlfriend, because she'll turn on a movie and I leave in 15 minutes. I can't do it. So I need to do something. Moving meditation is fine for me. I can do the dishes and feel good. But I like things like that. Something that someone put me onto recently, actually, Dr. C, was the Blaze pods. Have you seen those?
No.
So it's like the pop, 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 the little lights go on.
Right.
So again, it's just like a little moving meditation, just to learn to help me focus a little bit more on what I'm doing for sustained periods of time.
How much importance do you place on the mental game? And is there anything you do to kind of hone your mental game?
Yeah. So something that whenever I am playing my best and having like my like best attitude and positive attitude out on the court is when I've been sticking with a daily practice of like 10-minute morning meditation and 10-minute evening meditation, where like I put my phone away at night, I do my meditation, then I go right to bed. And then when I wake up in the morning, I don't look at text or emails or whatever. I'll just like turn on another meditation, and kind of like sets the tone for the day, helps me to be more present. And I've noticed when I'm not doing that is when I'm more reactive on the court, and I'm like, you know, a little more negative, and the self-talk isn't as positive. So for me, like, I'm not perfect with that routine. I really would like to continue to keep doing that, and I recommend it to anyone who wants to kind of work on being more positive or being more present, is to do some kind of mindfulness practice like that, starting your day and ending your day. Yeah. Even just like talking about it right now, I'm like, we need to get on that again.
It's so hard to fall out of that routine. Is there a particular app you use for your mindfulness meditation?
So I actually really like, Dr. Joe Dispenza is someone I like. I love his books and I love his talks, and he actually has some meditations on his website online that I've bought. But I recently did that. Before that, I would just go on YouTube, or mostly YouTube, and I just like type in like, say, whatever kind of meditation I was wanting to do, whether it's just like a guided like positive affirmations one, or just whatever I'm kind of dealing with like for that day. Like, you know, it could be like a confidence meditation, anything you want. Just type in YouTube and you can like say what it is you want it to be, and also the length. So if you only have 5 minutes, like 5 minutes is better than nothing. Do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then the longer you can do it, I feel like the longest I've really ever gone, I think, is 15 minutes. So I'm working my way up, but like even just doing that's very helpful.
Yeah, no, I love it that you have a schedule and a regiment, and you're trying to follow it. I try to do that too. I do fall off the bandwagon a lot on my meditation, but I do it in the morning. That's a great time before you open up your emails, like you said.
Yep.
I've tried it right before I go to bed, but I fall asleep immediately when I'm trying to do it at night.
I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
So I try to do it in the afternoon also. But I have read some studies that say 20 minutes is that benchmark where there's a vast improvement in your mentality. Any amount's good, obviously, but if you can do a total of 20 minutes per day, not in one session, split up, between sessions.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I think pickleball is such a mental sport, similar to tennis, and maybe even more so than tennis. And if you're not in the right headspace, then your game really suffers.
For sure. Yeah. when you start thinking too far ahead, or you start like, I think a lot of people like they're so close to getting this win that they want, and they start thinking about the results. That's when you don't get any results, is because like you didn't stay and stick to what you were doing, and like these practices help you to stay present and stick to the game plan, and like just 1 point at a time.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's so hard to get carried away with your thoughts. Emotionally charge your thoughts and not just focus on what's happening right now. And that's when I play my best, is when I forget about my ego and myself.
Yes, definitely. Yep.
So you healthy eater, you're vegan. How much do you focus on exercise and that part of lifestyle off the court?
Well, in an ideal world, I love to go to the gym 5 to 6 days a week. Whether it's lifting or doing cardio. I don't love cardio, but I prefer lifting. I did actually just recently hire a trainer, Justin Russ, and he's been awesome. I've had mono the last 2 months. I've actually kind of had bad strokes of luck with being sick over the last few years. It kind of keeps coming like in bouts. So I'm hoping to like stay healthy. I do feel like I try and eat healthy and exercise a lot, but maybe just need to keep building my immune system.
So you're just catching like colds that are going around, or? Yeah,
like when COVID went around, I got COVID 3 times. I've had 4 concussions in the last 2 years. Not all pickleball related. No. And then I just had mono. It's just kind of like keep getting like I feel good for like a little bit, and then something comes up, and so it's been really unfortunate, and it's hard because we travel so much, so it's easy. Yeah, so it's easy to get sick on the road. I don't know what I maybe need to add to my healthy lifestyle routine to like really build my immune system and my health.
Well, I can't imagine, like, your schedule is so crazy as a top pro pickleball player. It's just constantly on. Like, I went to Dallas for the PPA there 3 weeks ago, and I played in one event, mixed doubles. My men's doubles got canceled, and I was there doing a couple other things, and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, doing that times 3, right? 3 events as a pro, and then it's flying to the next location, having a day rest, and then just jumping right back into it. So it must wear you down.
Yeah, I think, it's kind of like like the travel, the stress, like you're exposed to, like germs and whatnot way more than most people. So, but yeah, then also just the stress of competing, the wear and tear of like getting in that mental headspace, that's why having the daily practice, I'm like telling myself this as much as I'm telling everyone else, will just like help you to not get as stressed and be able to like relax more. And I feel like that'll just help you to be able to maintain, like being able to compete at a high level back to back to back.
Do you get a chance to do much fitness and focus on nutrition outside of, or just in your normal life?
So fitness, I'm very focused on. I would say nutrition, I'm less focused on. There was a period of my life when I was playing tennis that I was extremely diligent with my nutrition. For me, what I noticed was in that process, if I didn't have every single duck in a row, which is very, very difficult to do when you're traveling, then the walls would all come crumbling down.
Right.
And that's just my personality. It's like, all the way or no way at all.
Yeah.
And so for me to be relaxed and comfortable is far more important than me following a certain strict regimen. So I listen more to my body. I'm conscious of what I want to do. But my diet is, I would say it's a healthy diet, but it's a relatively normal diet. I don't crush Cokes or sodas all the time. I'm not having desserts on the reg. But it's a pretty normal diet. The fitness, I'm very adamant that probably work out twice a day. Maybe that's one session of pickle and then a yoga. But I just like the endorphins. Like I'm a junkie in that regard. I have to have them. Even when I got in last night, I kind of posted about that. I got in. We had a 9 or 10 hour travel day, and I put my stuff down and I go for a run because I know that if I go to dinner last night, if I don't get that run, I'm going to feel lethargic and terrible, and I just don't do well like that. So, sustaining that kind of positive energy, I'd say, more than anything, is the best part of my fitness routine.
So you're more into, sounds like rather than strength training, you do mobility, flexibility. That's what you focus on.
I did a ton of strength training last year. I have a trainer that I work with probably twice a week in St. Petersburg. His name's Connor Derrickson. He's that pickleball trainer. He works with Anna Bright, among others. And we were doing a ton of CrossFit type stuff last year, and I got too big. I was probably 205 pounds, which now I'm sitting around 190. And 205 was just too big. I was just slow. I felt strong, but I was always like a little rigid, a little sore. And it was like, we need to reshape this a little bit. So our workouts aren't nearly as difficult as they were, but they're more explosive oriented, more dynamic. And for me, that seems to be working better.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, I haven't really thought about this, but do you think there's sort of an ideal physique for pickleball? I mean,
it's a great question.
If you look at the current pros, there's certainly advantages to strength. Let's say like J.W. Johnson forearms. Nobody can really flick a ball like him.
Arms. Yeah, it's great.
Right. But most are slender, and I mean, look at Hayden Patrick, and he could hit the ball harder than most people.
That's a unique wrist. Yeah, it's a unique wrist.
Right. So what do you think is the ideal physique?
Well, so it's funny because there was this initial theory that like really, really tall guys would break pickleball. And early on, I was like, of course, there's going to be a guy 6'10" who comes in. I think that's wrong. And I think especially for the singles game, like not the case. The best singles guys are shifty, really, really shifty. Jaume Martinez-Vic, 5'7",
right,
5'8" maybe. Like Connor Garnett, 5'10", teeny. Really small guys, but very, very agile, very crafty, ton of cat and mouse. So I think for the singles game in particular, shifty matters. Being mobile matters, and it's a different mobility than other sports. And then in the doubles game, I also think that there's an advantage to just being small in the sense that you're a smaller target. Like guys are so big. If I see a big lumbering body in front of me, I might just bag him over and over.
That's why Deco gets
he gets rocked because he's huge.
Yeah.
So it's a real thing, and I think that there's also something to be said for just being able to take 1-2 small steps, get yourself in position, and make good contact on the regular, as opposed to having to kind of organize this really long frame, these really long limbs, and connect with a ball that's maybe even not going to bounce correctly. That's hard. So I'm leaning towards like the 5'10" to 6 foot range and slender as the best body type for tennis or for pickleball.
And then in terms of exercises and stuff, I try to do a little bit of yoga. I think stretching is extremely important. I've started doing some of those cold plunges. I think they're very helpful as well. I actually think cold plunges are helpful if you combine it with some like you go through the heat and the cold intervals. So like if you have a little sauna or something like that, I think it helps a lot to go into from cold to hot to cold to hot. I think it helps with the body, with the circulation. I think it helps body recover a little faster. Stretching, that kind of stuff. And then, hopefully, again, when the time allows, just spending a little time in the gym, I think that goes a long way as well before, it helps with injury prevention, and all sorts of other things.
So it sounds like you're prioritizing mobility and being supple over strength training.
Yes, when you have back-to-back tournaments, for sure. I think strength training is extremely important when you have at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks in between events. Then you can definitely address that. Otherwise, it's tough. I mean, it's hard to build a good block of strength training in like 3-4 days, 5 days. It's just not.
You don't want to do heavy squats and deadlifts and be sore for a tournament 2 days later, right? What was your most embarrassing moment on the court?
Most embarrassing moment on the court. I've had a bunch of those, so I don't know. I don't know if I can think of one that was really, really embarrassing. Probably getting. Zane is gonna love it. Probably getting aced by Zane in the finals of the MLP. I think it was 2 years ago. With that, used to have that serve with a spin.
The Zane saw, right?
The Zane saw, exactly. Yeah, and I used to think that I have a pretty good read on it, and I had a pretty good read on it. And then he changed the toss. I think it was like 15 something. Like in the middle of the game, he changed the toss, and I fortunately made the wrong read and went the other way around. And that was
clean ace,
embarrassing. But I've been in enough embarrassing moments on the court to kind of just.
It's a humbling game. For sure.
Take a deep breath and move on to the next one. Yeah.
So, what was your most embarrassing moment on a pickleball court?
Oh man. Probably when I got, one of the times probably was when I got hit like directly in the face by one of Tyson's speed ups.
Oh no.
This was like a few years ago. And it's kind of funny because it was a couple months after I had just gotten a concussion. So I feel like I wasn't tracking the balls super well. And so it didn't even hit my paddle. It didn't even hit my hat. It just, he sped it up and it just hit me straight in the nose.
Oh man.
And
did you have glasses on?
No. No, so I was black and blue, and it was not fun. I definitely think I fractured it. Kept playing. I think adrenaline was just going, but so that was kind of embarrassing.
That's rough. That's rough. Yeah. Anytime you get hit in the face, it's dangerous, but also a little embarrassing.
Yep.
Come on, Tyson.
Yeah, not his fault. Not his fault. He did disguise it well. He did disguise it very well. I just was not ready.
So you already mentioned one of your pet peeves, or one rule you might change would be to make the net wider. What's another rule that you're just like, this has to change, guys? Let's move on.
There's been some thrown around. One that really bothers me is I don't like the idea of side specialization. It really does bother me. I feel like it shows incomplete players, right? So you have, and I won't say names, but guys who play with players that are maybe a little bit more developed, a little bit more skilled, and they have to master two things and do those two things really well. And I'm not minimizing them. Like that's what the game calls for. They're only playing and catering to the rules. But this was brought a long time ago by Steve Kuhn. I thought it was a really good idea. He said you should do 10 tournaments a year where you randomize the partners. And then you have to, one, probably play both sides. And two, you have to learn to adapt to personalities and who can kind of lead a squad or lead an individual and be a good partner. That's hard to do. It's not easy when maybe your personalities don't mesh, and I think there's some people who are way better at it than others. I am not good at it. Zane Navratil is someone that I reference is very good at it. It's like a superpower. He makes you feel like you're awesome. So I just don't like the fact that you know, even in tennis when you play doubles, I return on the do side of the ad side, but when I'm serving, it's not like I serve and I don't have to play the backhand side. I don't have to play the forehand side. I have to play everything. I have to be a complete player. And so that part of the game does bother me because I just think it creates a little bit too much of the same patterns over and over and over.
I see. Yeah, makes it less viewer friendly also, where one person is completely dominant and the other person's just kind of hanging out.
Correct.
Ready
It's
to
boring.
reset. Yeah. All right. Is there one regulation in pickleball or even a rule that you would change? Is there something that's just like super annoying when you're out there at the pro level and they call you on something, or you just got to follow this formality? You're like, this is so stupid. Let's be done with this already.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is I don't know. I'm thinking of like line calls where it's like refs will either overrule or not overrule, and then it's interesting when they choose to overrule, and it's like, for me, I guess that's caused the most frustration for me because it's like they're overruling calls from certain angles that like shouldn't be overruled, but then we can't use cameras. So I guess that's not really a rule or regulation. That's just something I guess that bothers me on tour. Yeah, I can't really think of any like rules that I don't like or that I would change.
Yeah, I mean, I think taking, I don't know, maybe you think differently, but taking the onus to call out balls on the players, away from the players, and putting line judges and then cameras that shoot in 240 frames per second, right? To back it up.
I think it would be fine. Like, I think it would be fine if like players still made the calls, but if there are cameras set up, and I don't know if this is the right answer, but like not unlimited line, like where you challenge, like
challenges,
not unlimited challenges, but more challenges. Yeah, because it's just been such an issue lately, and especially the camera angles are poor. Even so if we increase that and make that better, I think that'll help a lot of situations and matches and less angry players out there.
For sure, I've noticed that lines are the new out, right? even in amateur tournaments, I think as pros become more serious and it becomes more financially viable, there's more money on the line, then I don't think it's intentional, but if you see a ball and you don't know if it's in or out, you're more likely to call it out if the stakes are high. And I've seen that trickle down also to the amateur tournaments as well.
Well, I think too, with the technology being faster, like sometimes the ball moves so fast, like I'll look at my partner like, was that in or out?
Right.
And like obviously, like if neither of us saw it because it's so fast, we'll like call it in. But you watch it back and it's like, oh man, it was out, or vice versa. Like, shoot, I called it out and it was good, but it moves so fast, your eyes kind of play tricks on you. So that's why it'd be nice to have a little extra help if like you're unsure.
Yeah.
Like you want to call it, but I'm like unsure. Can we check it? So
that's one of my pet peeve rules that I would advocate changing, is that the player making the call should be able to question their own call.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if you're not sure, call it in, but then question it, or call it out and then question it and go to the video. Okay. So if you could take a shot or a skill from any player on the tour right now, what would the shot be and who's the player?
I would say I'd probably take Annalie Waters, two-handed backhand. She can hit it like her two-handed dink, her two-handed speed up. She just holds it so unbelievably well. I would love to have that shot in my arsenal.
I don't understand how she generates that kind of power either with her two-e. I mean,
when I watch her, she's using so much like of her kinetic change. Like it's like her full body is into it. So I think just makes such clean contact. So I think it's a mix of a bunch of things all working together super well.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. How about on the men's side? What's a person and a skill you would adopt?
Probably Ben's shot selection. Ben John's.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, so he just knows where the ball's coming, knows where he wants to put it, and like it's just like he sees the openings. I just feel like, I'd love to take all of that from him.
Yeah. I see that with Ben the most, or being some of the most skilled at it, but at the pro levels in general, you see so much smarter shot choices in general, obviously, but also if you watch, like in my amateur group, there's so many ego shots. Like somebody gets body bagged and they're looking to body bag the other person. And that doesn't happen at the pro level because that's not the smart smart
Right.
thing to do to
Yeah,
get your ego involved. So you see, people able to drop the anger or the embarrassment and just, focus on, okay, if a clean winner is going to be a cross-court dink, then let's do that.
Right, for sure. Yeah. I am not I definitely do not play my best if I get angry at my opponent. Like that's my game goes down the drain.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing because some people play a little better when there's a low level of anger, right?
For sure. Yeah. Everyone's
if they
different.
can control it, but that's not you.
Yeah, not me.
I can kind of tell that about you. You have a nice demeanor on the court.
Yeah, if I'm feeling like that way against my opponent, my game goes down, but also like that just means like I'm not focused on what I'm trying to do. It means like I'm like way too concerned with what's going on outside of me. And because like a lot of times like after a match is over, like say I'll play a team where like someone will come up to me like, oh, wasn't that so annoying? Or you're like, they were like so in your face. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even notice. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And so when I'm in that headspace, that's when I'm dialed and playing my best and not even concerned about what they're doing. But the minute like they're doing something and like I start paying attention to it, then my game just like, then I'm not focused on the ball, I'm focused on them.
Exactly. I mean,
So-
to our point earlier about meditation and the whole idea is to not feed the emotions.
Exactly.
Right? And
Yes.
not feed the thoughts and not chase thoughts, just clear the mind. So yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You're putting your method to practice.
Trying. It's easier said than done sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's a lifelong journey, the meditation thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to name a player, and you tell me what skill you would adopt from that. What's your favorite skill of that player that you would incorporate into your game?
Okay.
So Ben Johns,
Backhand flick.
the backhand flick. So the one kind of below the net, the wristy one, or the backhand roll.
It's kind of the same shot to me. I mean, different variations to the shot, but that's
Yeah,
that's the shot.
that's a good shot. All right, Colin.
Yeah, probably the resets.
The resets?
Or maybe the
Resets,
dinks. Yeah, just a soft game in general.
Dylan Frazier.
Counter punch. I think he's always been tough because he's not a tennis player, so he's got some unconventional stuff that he comes up with and surprises us. Dylan's obviously a great player, so I think just his counter punch in general. He's able to cover some. Look, he's definitely got fast hands, but I don't think he's got the fastest hands out there. But he's got some mobility on that wrist, and he's got some things that he does where you just don't expect it from players.
Right.
So yeah.
Similar player, J.W. Johnson.
JW obviously has a very good back and flick as well, and some really fast hands. I think JW has some of the fastest hands out there.
Okay.
Again, not that Dylan doesn't, but I think Dylan just has just a different way of covering, kind of like O'Reilly. Riley has a different way of covering his body as well. That's just not the way most people do it.
Right. Anna Lee.
Waters. She's got a great drive, of course. Yeah, and some really good. I mean, I think just her ability to read the game. I think she reads the game a little faster than all of us do. Maybe the fact that she started when she was, 10, 11.
It's just second nature now.
It helps for sure, yeah. She seems like she's always a second ahead of us.
Tyson.
Just a dog. He's such a fighter, Yeah, just always coming back, always staying strong mentally. So you got to give it to the guy. Yeah, he's a tough guy to put away. No matter how bad he's playing that day, he's not gonna make it easy on you. So very physical, for sure. Physicality, something that I will take from Tyson as well. Yeah,
For sure. Catherine Parento.
Catherine, just that attitude, that she's got, pretty, light, kind of smiling during matches and that kind of stuff. But she's a very fierce competitor. So
I like it.
I wish I could, balance it out like that. Unfortunately, I cannot. I have to go through that zone when it gets really competitive, and I find it kind of tough to smile during those moments. But I think it's really important. I think it's helpful to do what she does. So hopefully, I can train myself to do that.
That's a good point. Yeah, kind of the mentality aspect of her game in particular, where she's able to play loose and have fun.
100%. Yeah. While she's obviously competing extremely well.
Exactly. Is there any other player out there who you're like, yes, I'd like to have this aspect of their game?
I mean, there's all sorts of strong players, right? I mean, there's a couple of players that come to mind right away when, like you talk about like a Riley, or a James or a Deco. I mean, and again, I'm sure I'm leaving some other players out as well. That everybody's got some strengths and you want to incorporate in your game. but yeah, never really thought about like kind of picking one thing from each player. You know, that's a very unique way of looking at it.
Well, let's cover those though. So Riley, what would you take from his game?
I think Riley's a great competitor as well. I think Riley's very physical, and I think Riley's also a very smart competitor. You know, I think he's very good at making adjustments during matches and figuring out weaknesses and things that are not working for you that day. And yeah, definitely something that could be copied and could be integrated in my game.
How about James Ignatowicz?
The footwork.
Really?
Yeah, of course, obviously.
You mean his
No, I don't know about that. Yeah. I don't know. I think it works for him. I don't think it's gonna work for other people. But obviously he's a very fast guy, lightning quick, and yeah. I think he's probably the fastest guy out there. Especially in terms of doubles.
Yeah.
And I know he's not playing a lot of singles, but I think he's probably one of the fastest in singles as well. So just a really, really quick guy, and which is not easy to do considering his size, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, last one, Deckel.
Yeah. Look, Deckel obviously has a very strong serve, very strong counterpunch. So even though he's a big guy, tall, wide, which in a way would make it easier to attack because there's more spot to cover. I think his counterpunch is spot on, and if you don't attack to the right place, you definitely pay the price. So yeah, and he's had a lot of success this year. He's playing very well at the moment.
I'll give you a pro, and you tell me which skill of theirs you would like to adopt.
Got it.
So let's start with Ben Johns.
That's a very tough one. Like but most people would say like the backhand flick. That's not it for me. I think if I could take anything, it would actually be like his cerebral approach to each player and each scenario. He's so calculated. He's not dumb. There's so many dumb players, and I pride myself on like not being stupid. And I think if you look at real clear stats, I've always been like, I make an error 1 out of every 67 touches. I don't miss. That's like my claim to fame. Now I might need to be more aggressive, but Ben I feel like is very, very calculated. So I would take his brain.
Yeah, good answer. Most people take shots. Yeah, any kind of skill. So let's go Anna Lee.
I mean, two-handed backhand counter.
Yeah.
Two-handed backhand rip. Like I don't even have a two-hander. I want something I want to add, but I got an Ernie ball machine, but I'm waiting for my facility to open so I don't mess up my park courts and have people yelling at me with balls going everywhere. But yeah, her two-handed counter is forceful. It can't go there. Yeah. So yeah, that would be one.
I noticed when we were playing earlier, you got a really solid one-handed backhand. Do you have a two-e?
No, that's what I want to add. So when I was a tennis player, I was 14 when I switched to the one-hander, and now, especially with the game evolving and people being so much more offensive off the two-handed backhand, particularly off the bounce, that's one area of my game that's really weak. You can kind of leave a dead ding to my backhand, and I'll probably stay neutral. I need to be able to attack that a little bit more.
Let's go Dylan Frazier.
Forehand attack off the bounce or backhand counter, both are pretty damn good.
Gotcha.
And he's also got a good temperament for the game. He does not get too high or too low, so I like that about him.
Yeah, me too. JW.
I mean, he's an interesting one because I feel like he's a physical anomaly in that his arms are so long for his height because he reaches balls in the kitchen. We were like, damn, how do you reach that?
That's interesting. You think that might be why he's so good at those flicks because his arms are
I think his arms are abnormally long for his height. Like so when they do, in the NBA, obviously they do combine. They'll do your wingspan. I think if we do JW's wingspan, his wingspan's like a 6'5" guy.
Okay,
like that's my guess.
That makes sense.
It doesn't look normal to me. But like when I watch his arms by his body, I'm like his arms are so long. Right. And then of course he has a uniquely talented wrist. Like it's easy to flick, but he seems to flick with a lot of control. So I would of course take his reach and his flick at the line.
Gotcha. How about Fed?
Fed's drop is money. Just stable, super stable. Also a guy who's not dumb. Plays kind of within a methodical approach to the game, but his drop is probably more consistently going to be in the kitchen than anyone else.
Does he do mostly topspin or?
It's a variety. Backhand's more underspin, forehand's more topspin, but he can do both.
Okay. Yeah, he's so solid.
Yeah.
How about Anna Bright?
Tenacity. I don't think there's a particular shot that I watch and I'm like, ooh, Anna. There's nothing like that. Her forehand drop is obviously money. She rolls it quite a bit, but more it's just her she's like the Jimmy Connors of the female pickleball world. She's just tenacious.
Andre.
I mean, I'll take his reach. Even playing the games with him today, it's funny. He's not like super forceful, but he's tricky because you you hit a standard dink that somebody might back off of, and he's reaching at it. So he's one of those guys who's on that rim of 6'4", 6'5", and he seems to have very good dexterity in his wrist. So his reach at the line and kind of his deception when he does take the ball to the air.
Mm-hmm. You already mentioned Gnadowicz's two-handed backhand.
If I could take any shot in the whole game, that's it. Like, I think honestly, if you give me that shot, it's night.
Yeah, he really did. He's the one that brought that into pickleball.
He's
for the most
one.
part.
I mean, yeah, like Connor does it, Garnett, but Connor doesn't put nearly as much on it. Connor's is more of like a shove.
Okay.
James rolls it, like he literally yanks it.
Yeah.
And so it's very hard to deal with.
And he's got wicked power too, doesn't he?
Wicked power, and he sets up for the 2E, which he'll generally go line on, but the attack looks the exact same as when he's rolling across.
Yeah. Travis, it's great to chat with you.
My pleasure, John. Thanks so much for
sitting
having
down
me,
with
man.
me. Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Well, Meghan, awesome. Thanks so much. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yes,
And,
you as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to hitting with you on the court.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Andrei, fantastic to talk with you again, and look forward to hanging out with you here at the Proton event and getting some court time in with you.
Appreciate the time you're spending with me. Look forward to being on the court with you as well. Hope you get to try all the paddles, and hope you're having a good time here in Arizona.
Fantastic. Thanks, Andrei.
Thank you.